So welcome to welcome to today's Monday's Everyday Alex. And we're live again. This is sort of becoming a bit of a theme. I think the goal is to do this probably this week. We'll keep probably today, Wednesday, Thursday, maybe Friday. And then down the line, I think we'll probably still keep one or two lives a week. But for now, whilst my schedule is a bit clearer, and I think probably that's true for many of you, I like being able to do the interaction. So in a little bit, I'd love to take any questions that you guys have got. But before we do that, I wanted to share a few thoughts. The title of today's video is, Do You Feel Trapped? I imagine that some of you, certainly in the UK, we're sort of a week into this sort of initial lock-in, lockdown period. For some of you, it might be a bit longer that you've sort of been in that mode. And certainly, I feel, and maybe others are starting to feel, not that there was a novelty at first, but certainly we made the move before this all kind of fully kind of unfolded, let's say. We made the move from London to temporarily living in a house out of London in the countryside so the kids would have more space. And initially there was a sort of novelty and a sort of busyness and adapting and getting a kind of daily routine in place for the kids and sort of figuring out my structure for work. And I think we just sort of noticed over the weekend, there was a sort of move from that initial kind of lots of things happening and lots of things being organized to sort of the realization that this is what life is going to look like now for a while. And I think it dawned on sort of us as adults. It also sort of, I think the reality started to dawn on the kids that they'd gone sort of a week already without seeing their friends, having play dates. Normally at the weekends each day we do an activity and we go off and sort of do something, and you know there's something to kind of shape the day around and to sort of feel excited about. And so with that being the case, I think there's that feeling that starts to happen of feeling trapped and feeling. But I thought I'd share some thoughts and some ideas that can be helpful when you might be feeling that way. And I think the first thing I wanted to say is that emotions are like waves, that they sort of come and they rise and they go. And sometimes at the times we feel the most trapped and the most frustrated and the most stuck, and you might feel like, I can't do this for another minute, let alone another hour or day or month or whatever. Sometimes all we need to do is just be patient and just hang in there. And it's like that wave comes and the frustration sort of grows and gets more and more. And then that sort of wave kind of crashes and passes and things feel easier again. Things feel different. And I'll give you a classic example. Yesterday, so Sunday afternoon, and I had the kids outside and was trying to give my wife a break, kind of entertain the kids, had kids on the trampoline, sort of running around in the garden. And in the space of about 5 minutes, I managed to have 2 out of 3 children in floods of tears running into the house wanting mummy. And wasn't my finest parenting moment. I suppose I'll tell the full story. Certainly the second incident I think was my fault. Our eldest we got these balloons, which are kind of one of the fun things we did. You can blow up and kind of either let go or you can kind of bounce them around with a kind of rubber band on them. And our eldest had filled up one of these balloons with water. And the idea was we were throwing up and they were kind of exploding. And then there was a suggestion, why don't you throw it up in the air and it sort of will spin around and the water kind of spray out and everyone would get a little bit wet was the idea. And so I did this, and particularly our middle daughter, who's always up for a kind of adventure and kind of likes having fun, was like, I don't mind if I get wet. So I throw this thing up in the air to spin and it lands on the trampoline and literally the whole thing explodes in her face. And it was quite cold outside. It was obviously cold water from the tap, and literally, I mean, the whole bomb just went bang in her face. And I'm really ashamed to say that actually we all laughed because it was sort of funny. We thought she was sort of was in tears, like, and not crocodile, what we call crocodile tears, but like full on, like screaming, crying. And yeah, I kind of felt like I failed. And it was sort of one of those moments that sort of the frustration is sort of building, and already been quite a long weekend of trying to keep kids entertained. And And just sort of a moment of, oh my God, like we're a week in, and normally we have such fun weekends because we go off and we do fun things. And yet within sort of 20 minutes, half an hour, managed to bath the two younger kids. And then I have to check the name. There's a book, children's book. It's called something like The Book That Has No Pictures. Anyway, it's the funniest, best children's book. So anyway, I end up reading this book and it all ended great. My point that I'm trying to make, kids went to bed literally laughing in bed, going to sleep. The waves come and we feel overwhelmed. And for a while, it feels like it's impossible. We're not going to go through it. And then we just have to be patient. We have to hang in there and use the best of our resourcefulness that we can, and we navigate and we steer through. And then on the other side, it becomes easier again. And sometimes when we're going through hell, not that that was hell yesterday, but when we're going through hell, you just have to keep putting one foot in front of the other. When you're going through hell, keep going. And if you feel trapped and if you feel overwhelmed, each day that you hang in there is another step forward, is another day towards getting through the other side of what's happening. And we don't all need to do it perfectly. We're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to at times get irritated and get frustrated, lose our patience. And we just want to look back on this time and feel that we did our best. And our best means that we're not going to get it right all of the time. And that really is okay. Sometimes all we need to do is just do nothing and just let time pass. And just like those waves in the ocean, the enormous wave comes up, and then if you do nothing, it comes down and it passes. And the same is true with our own emotions, that we can feel really pissed off or frustrated or angry or devastated or lost. And we feel like we need to do something to fix it, like we need to find the answer. But sometimes we just need to let time pass and be patient. And in a sense, trust that if we do that, things will feel easier. That if we do nothing but be patient and let time pass, somehow things will resolve themselves. In fact, one of the things that we sort of learn as a practitioner is when you sometimes get emails from patients that are in crisis, and for whatever reason, you don't get a chance to reply to the email immediately, or you're on holiday and it's a kind of autoresponder. If in a crisis, please contact this other person, and they don't do that. Or you send a holding reply and book an appointment the next week and to plan a kind of addressing it then. And I don't mean it's like an urgent critical crisis. I mean, someone's struggling and they need some help. And how often in those situations, things end up resolving themselves. That something else becomes clearer, or someone else steps in, or something that felt trapped kind of becomes untrapped and moves. So sometimes it really is as simple as when we feel trapped doing nothing, when you feel trapped being patient, letting time pass, and realizing that there will be a resolution and things will find their way forwards. And sometimes what will help that is asking for help. Sometimes when we feel trapped and we feel stuck, what we need is a fresh perspective. We need someone that's going to see it different. Outside perspective is everything. The place they're in. We also need to sometimes think often people on the healing journey are sort of forced to figure out that when you're trapped in the environment, sometimes what you can do is you can just change things within the environment. So it might be changing the lighting. It might be putting different music on. It might be having some essential oils and burning some oils that you get a fragrance. But sometimes all you need to do, sometimes what will be helpful in these situations is just to change something in the environment around you, which just allows things to feel a bit different. So if you're in the same room a lot of the time, when it's time to shift modes, perhaps if you're working from home, for example, if you're going to be in the same space afterward, change the lighting, change the smells, change perhaps the music you're listening to, change the chair that you're sitting in. All of those little things when you feel trapped will be helpful. So I'd love to hear your thoughts and reflections. When you feel trapped, what do you find helps? What helps you sort of navigate through those times of feeling trapped or feeling frustrated? This is particularly one where those of you that have been on a healing journey for a while have got something probably to really offer the rest of the population, which for the first time is having to grapple with and struggle with some of these challenges. So please do post in the comments what helps you when you feel trapped. Also, if you've got any questions, then we've got a little bit of time. I'm happy if there are questions that come up to answer them. Miss Grudge says on Instagram, I'm lucky because I'm working from home and I'm busy with work, so time just flies. Not that I'm bored with my life away. I'm wishing my life away. I'm just not bored. Yeah, I think sometimes we need to find ways to structure. So if you don't have external structure that comes in, sometimes just creating your own structure. So one of the things that we've been doing with the kids is they haven't been doing as many hours of schoolwork that they would normally be doing, but we have put some structure in place for their day. So they start school at a certain time. They then have sort of playtime at a certain time. They eat at a certain time. There's a little bit of looseness around that structure, but it just gives some shape, in a sense, to the day. I remember reading someone was saying over the weekend that what they've been doing is actually getting the kids into school uniform, and that putting on school uniform and then taking it off again seems to have been helpful in terms of them sort of feeling into the structure that they're in. Hazel says definitely changing up activity frequently and getting outside, even if it's just sticking my head out the door for a minute or wrapping up warm if needed with a cuppa. Yeah, even if you're going outside to breathe different air, as small as that might sound, I absolutely agree. I think that can make a difference. And then, excuse me, trying to pronounce names, says it. Treen Meg Frisk says, planning something that makes me happy that I'm able to do now, like watching a movie or something else that brings me joy. Yeah, I think having little things to look forward to, I think, is great. And I'm a great believer in sometimes revisiting movies that you've loved or revisiting box sets that you've enjoyed. I'm a bit of a TV addict. It's not so I've confessed before on here. And particularly, I really love well-structured and sort of gripping box sets. In fact, I rarely watch movies because I these days, I don't want to invest in characters emotionally for like an hour and a half. I want to have that bigger sort of progression. And so re-watching box sets, I guess I should confess some of my favorite box sets. And again, feel free to share some of the ones that you guys like. But I'm rewatching Prison Break at the moment. It's currently on Netflix in the UK again. It's one of my favorites. Breaking Bad's an obvious one. Game of Thrones is an obvious one. I have a secret love of Downton Abbey. That's another story for another day. I love The Walking Dead. And some of these series I've watched sometimes 2 or 3 times. It's a benefit of having a bad memory sometimes, but also having things that I often work late at night and everyone goes to bed, and I like having something on in the background whilst I'm sort of doing something. So finding things that you can look forward to at the end of the day can also affect the day. Miss says watching YouTube videos, jigsaws, the sun when it's shining, it's a good thing. We're going into spring and summer. I think that's absolutely right. I think, can you imagine going through this period without video conferencing, without fast internet, without the sort of social media connectivity that we have? I mean, we've got it relatively easy compared to previous generations for sure. So yeah, I hope that's been helpful. Just to sort of summarize a few things here. Remember, emotions are like waves. They come in, they build up, they peak, but then they do pass. And when you're at the peak, it's the point it feels often the most difficult. And yet, if you do nothing but be patient, it will then pass. And sometimes you've just got to keep moving forwards, hang in there, keep putting a foot in front of the other, and it will feel easier. Ask for help. Sometimes that different perspective can be really helpful and supportive. Change something in the environment. It could be something very simple. And yeah, have things to look forward to. So I hope that's been helpful. I'm going to, tomorrow, we have the next episode in the In Therapy series. This is the real life filmed therapy sessions that we've been doing. And thankfully, we got about 2.5 months of filming done before lockdown came in. So it's actually been a good time for us to pause and sort of work through the backlog of episodes that we've got. So we've got a good few months of content anyway that's coming there. So tomorrow, we're going to have the first episode with Sally. So we're going to meet Sally and start to follow her journey. And I think this first episode is an interesting one because it's primarily comprised of her video diaries whilst doing the 90-day program, which is our kind of flagship program to kickstart people on the psychology side of interaction. So it will generally be 6 o'clock in the evening now. So 6 o'clock Wednesday will be the next one of these. But for now, thanks everyone for watching.